Hi guys, welcome to another episode of MrLopezClasses.com. We are going to continue with our gasoline engines class. In this episode, this is the chapter number 5, we are going to talk about the cooling system. Cooling system once again for inboards and outboards and gasoline engines, and we are going to follow the same format. We are going to reinforce my explanations with interviews in other marinas with the master technicians, and we are going to mix it the episodes with the class in our set and the interviews in the marinas. Okay, we are going to start with the outboards, and we are going to check how is the cooling system in the majority of the outboards. In this particular example, I have the diagram of this outboard, and I want to check the path of the raw water in the outboards. Yes, the outboards are cooled by raw water. We are going to follow the path of the raw water, and we are going to verify where the water enter, what element control the flow of the raw water, and how the raw water goes out. Okay, the raw water enter in the bottom, in the lower unit. The grill is located over there where the raw water enter. The raw water suction is suction because the raw water pump is located here. Normally the raw water pump is located in between the middle section and the lower unit. When you remove the lower section, like in this moment Mr. Rodriguez is removing the lower section, immediately you remove the lower section, you have access to the raw water pump. And now we are going to explain the process to check the raw water pump. After this explanation, we are going to start with the raw water pump, and we are going to analyze the raw water pump, the thermostat, and we are going to analyze the path of the raw water step by step. Okay, the raw water pass because the raw water pump suction the salt water and pass through the middle section, continue, and enter and circulate to the block and the engine, circulate through the block, and one portion of the raw water goes outside and refrigerate the computer. In some outboards, the computer have a bracket where the computer is bolted, like the bracket that you have on the screen, and that bracket have a circulation of raw water, and the raw water return into the block and enter into the head and circulate through the head only if the thermostat is open. If the thermostat is open, the raw water circulate and goes out. The color of the raw water in this particular example is blue if it's water coming in, and is orange if it's water coming out. Alright, in this particular case, if the thermostat is open, the water circulates around the head and the water goes down. Immediately the water goes out to the head. They have one port to drain water, and the rest of the raw water goes down into the middle section and is returning into the sea. This is the level of the sea water because goes in the middle of the propeller. This is the propeller. The water goes out in the middle of the propeller, and other portion in the grill on top in some outboards. This is basically the path of the raw water. We are going to remove the power head. And we are going to analyze the ports on the power head where the raw water enter, circulate, and return. Yes, my friend, those ports and those O-rings are critical. In some engines, we don't have, in between the power head and the middle section, we don't have O-rings, we have gaskets. And if the gasket is broken, you have this situation. Look at this engine. The engine is running and the raw water is coming out in between the power unit and the middle section. This is not good. This is a big problem. In this particular case, you need remove the power head and replace the gasket and verify where is the leak. Normally it's because the gasket is broken or the O-rings in the middle section are broken. This is not good. This is a problem, of course. If you connect the computer, if you connect the scanner, you have a problem of temperature because the raw water is migrating in between the middle section and the power head. Alright, we are going to start the process, the analysis. We are going to analyze, the first element that we are going to analyze is the raw water pump. We are going to check the different type of raw water pumps, the different type of impellers, and we are going to check the procedure to remove the raw water pump, replace the parts, and putting back the raw water pump, replace the impeller, replace the plate, replace the seal, and putting back the lower unit. Okay, we are going to visit the marina of Mr. Rodriguez, Real Loco Marine, and we are going to support the explanation with Mr. Rodriguez and Mr. Williams, Glenn Williams. With both of them, we are going to analyze the raw water system for outboards. This is the episode for raw water system, outboards and inboards. Hi guys, today in this episode we are going to explain the different type of raw water pump for outboards.
Correct.
Because we explained raw water pump for inboards several times in diesel class and inboard engines. This is exclusive for outboards, and we are going to try to give to you different tips, different recommendations for the service.
Correct.
Okay, we are going to start, Danny.
Okay.
In what point you prefer to start?
Well, let's just first kind of look at the different types of water pump impellers you have. Okay. You have small impellers, you have big impellers, you have different triangular impellers. There's just so many different impellers. So it all depends on the model and what the manufacturer specs in the manual.
Once again, Danny, the enemy of the impellers, especially in outboards, is air and sand.
Sand. So it kind of works like this. An impeller is like a double-edged sword. If you use it too much, you get this. It wears.
It's weird, like this, no?
Right.
Exactly.
But also, if you don't use it too much, it'll look like that too.
Yeah.
And that's because when it sits in the housing, okay, when it sits in the housing like this, it holds a memory, especially if it sits for long periods of time.
Have a memory. Correct.
And then you don't have the pressure, because the pressure is not the same against the wear.
Correct. For that reason, once again, the secret, if you have a boat, is use the boat.
Use the boat.
Use the boat.
The more you use the boat,
the better the boat.
the better the boat.
All right. Okay. The impellers are flexible impellers for raw water. This is mandatory in inboard, outboard.
Absolutely.
And the procedure immediately you remove the impeller is check if you have cracks.
Cracks.
If you have cracks on the roof, and check if all the blades are in good condition.
Correct.
And normally I recommend, if you remove the plate on the impeller, replace the impeller.
Absolutely.
Because how many times you spend removing the lower
Exactly.
unit?
You're already there.
Correct. And this is not expensive.
No, no. And what I always recommend to our customers is we don't replace just the impeller. We make them replace the whole water pump.
Correct.
Only
Correct.
because what happens is you don't know if there's a hairline crack in the housing.
Correct.
So imagine you putting this all back together and you didn't see the crack and you have to do it all over again. The customer's not going to pay you.
Yeah, no, of course.
So that's why it's up to
Of
you
course.
as a technician to change out all the
Yeah,
parts.
that's true. That's true.
It's only like $60 more for the whole kit.
No, of course. What about the housing?
Okay, so the housing here, if you notice, is smooth, okay? And what happens if you get sand, the sand becomes like sandpaper and it cuts grooves in it and it really grinds it out.
And destroy the impeller.
It destroys the impeller, destroys the housing, and if you run out of water, then this housing will get so hot, it'll actually melt the plastic
Correct.
all the way around.
And the plastic is deformed. We have different housings, no?
Yes, there's different housings. You actually here have another housing
And
as well.
another housing. Danny, what about the seal located over there?
Okay, that's to keep air out. Okay, so that way when the impeller's pumping the water and it's pushing it through the water tube up to the motor, it keeps the air out from coming in.
Danny, we are going to do the full service on the raw water pump in this unit.
Correct.
Okay, first step.
All right, so the first step, obviously, you take everything apart, which we've already done. But I'm going to show you how, when you, to know exactly what water pump you need to look at the manufacturer specs and find out. And
Service manual.
You need the model and serial number to do the reference to make sure that you put it, because there's different applications for different pumps. Okay?
Yeah.
So that's why it's important to know that. So once you do that, then you know the part number. You buy the unit.
Correct.
And then you open it up and you can see
those are the parts that you receive when you order the kit.
Correct.
Okay, Danny.
Okay. So here's your water pump housing.
The housing, perfect.
Here's the inner housing.
The inner housing.
This is your wear plate for the water pump sits on. Your impeller. And these are the individual seals and gaskets that you need for the unit.
What about this?
This is going to be for another application which doesn't apply to this particular one.
Ah, okay, perfect. All right.
So, and then also you have the screws. You never want to reuse the same screws.
Never.
You always want to use.
Never.
Now these O-rings is for the actual water tube that comes from the power head.
Correct.
They want you to change the O-rings by manufacturer.
And
that's why it's
those
important.
are special O-rings, a special material, a special color. Be careful. Don't try to replace those O-rings for generic O-rings because it's different material.
It's different.
All right.
Different thicknesses and all.
Different thickness. Correct.
All right. So we're gonna assemble this, right?
Correct.
Okay. So obviously, if you look in the housing, you have the O-ring. And there's a weep hole. You never want to put grease there. So when you put grease, you want to only put the grease down here. So then you take the O-ring, you put grease here, you put this in, and it secures it. The only reason I'm putting grease there is to secure it. Once you secure it there, you put grease around here to put the wear plate.
It's important the position of those grooves, no?
Yes, because if you put that groove here, the water will never go up through here.
Correct.
Okay, and then also if you look, it has little slots, so it's kind of hard to make that mistake that you see
in order to avoid that you make a mistake.
Right.
Okay, good.
Okay, so then you put it in there, and that's it. So once you have that,
and you have another O-ring here, no?
Right, and we will put that I usually put that towards the end. I'm going to explain where we're going to go now. So now, we're going to come to here. So obviously, you have a gasket.
The gasket, perfect.
The gasket. You don't need to put any sealant or nothing. Just the gasket's fine.
Use the gasket.
Then you put
the plate.
The wear plate.
All right. If you need grease, we have grease over there.
Right. You put the wear plate. And I normally try to do is try to have the keyway pointing this way. And the reason I do that is if you drop the keyway, it doesn't accidentally fall.
This is a great tip. Yeah, facing forward in order to avoid drop the key over there.
And you don't see it, so he can see it there.
Correct. Yeah, if you have the key over there, goes into the hole. That's not good. Perfect.
And then you'll have to take everything back apart. Okay. So now once you have that, then you have this O-ring.
O-ring.
Now, if you look in the groove, you see a certain position. It always points to the right. So what I normally do is this O-ring goes to the bottom, but when I'm installing this, what I do is just take this back off. And this is a tip. They don't really tell you this in the manual. I use the O-ring to hold it for me.
And you don't need to hold it.
You don't need to hold it. So then when you do that, then you put this in, and if you notice the groove, I kind of put my finger where the groove is, so when I'm putting this in, just finding that right.
Down. Okay, perfect.
So when it sits flush like that.
Okay, you recommend a little grease on the plate?
I don't normally put the grease in the plate. I actually put the grease
on the housing.
On the housing.
All right, perfect.
So this is what we're going to do. So once we put that, you take the grease, and I first put where the O-rings are going to go.
In order to keep the ring.
Everything together. And because you have the grease,
Yeah, you
nothing
follow.
falls out.
That's perfect.
Okay, so now we're going to install this. Okay, so I still have a little grease. I just kind of go
On the housing.
a little bit. And so now we're going to install the housing.
Danny, the $1,000,000 question where the people make a lot of mistakes is how you introduce the housing into the impeller, protecting the impeller. What is the process?
So here's the deal. Obviously, we put the grease in the housing so we don't damage the impeller, and you have to know the rotation of the engine.
What is clockwise?
It's
no?
clockwise.
Okay.
So, obviously, if you remember in this here, if it's running clockwise, it has to spin like this. So this has to go in. So when you put the impeller in, you have to spin the housing.
Okay, if the rotation is clockwise, it's spinning like this, and you should turn the housing in the opposite direction a little in order to help that introduction.
Correct. And once you get it low enough, then you can put this on there and then twist it by hand.
And after that, it's easy. Put the bolts and apply the torque in diagonal.
Correct.
And what about the O-ring on top?
This one actually has it inside. There's no O-ring on this particular one.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, and then the O-ring that's on the shaft will actually go in here in the tube.
In the tubes, okay.
And you have to put grease on these as well.
In both of them. That's simple. That's the process.
Yep, that's the process on this particular outboard.
For that reason, the recommendation is always when you remove the lower unit, replace the impeller.
Absolutely, that's a no-brainer. Change the water. If you're taking the lower unit off, whether it's just to replace the seal, you should always replace the water pump.
And the bolts, be
And the
careful
bolts.
with the bolts. That's mandatory.
My recommendation is when you do a water pump, you replace the whole system. You do not just do the impeller. It's only like $30, $40 difference.
No, that's
It's not worth it.
correct.
Just think of this: if you miss something, you're gonna have to take it back off, and the customer's not gonna pay you for it.
And always with the serial number and the part number.
Absolutely.
And try to use original
Service
parts.
manual. Use the service manual.
No generic part, because the generic part you have problems.
Correct.
Sooner or
Generic
later.
problems, it doesn't last as long. These engines were all tested with OEM parts. That's how they're tested.
Yeah.
That's how they guarantee that it's going to work the way it works.
Correct. Okay, this is the same process for an steam drive and outboard.
Yep.
Hi guys. In this particular case, we are going to do the service on the raw water pump in an Alpha 1.
Alpha 1 stern
Alpha
drive.
1
or
steering,
cruiser.
steering drive. And we are going to do the process, Danny. Go ahead.
Okay. So basically, once you pull the drive out. So here's the deal: when you're pulling the drive out on an Alpha 1, you have to put it in forward gear.
In forward.
Okay.
Why?
And the reason is because what happens in the transom assembly, you have a fork that goes. If you look here, goes right here. So if it's in gear, if it's in neutral, it stays like this. You can never get it out. So when it's in gear, it's straight, so it slides right out.
That's the reason.
That's the reason.
If not, it's impossible.
Only Alpha 1 drives needs to do that.
Yeah.
So once you do that, then you pull the drive out of the transom assembly. Then you loosen the bolts, and once you have everything loosened,
You remove. Perfect.
everything should pop off. But you have to drain the oil first. Okay.
Of course.
Let me explain why. Because you have an oil ring that keeps oil on the upper case,
Look at the oil.
and you have oil in the lower case.
Correct.
Okay.
We have oil in the upper case and oil in the lower case.
Yeah. And there's
But-
actually seals.
correct. And we have seals, no?
Look at the seals in there.
All right. We have the seals over there.
And there's the transfer from the oil from the top to the bottom.
Correct. That's the O-ring for the transfer. So, and those are the seals. Okay.
So once you have everything apart, you have the bolt, you have nuts, and you have a screw. So once you take that all apart, well, this one, there's a wear plate that goes on top of here.
Correct.
Okay, so we take the wear plate off, and in most cases, the complete water pump kit also comes with a new seal for the bottom.
Oh, that seal. Once again, it's a lip seal located over there. That seal prevent what?
prevents water from coming in the gear case.
Okay, water into the gear.
And this
case.
one is a bad seal, and look at the result of the bad seal. This comes off with a special tool, and you can see the water actually penetrating the gears.
And look at the bearings. And water penetrate over there and damage the bearings.
Damage the bearings.
Okay. And that's the function of the seal.
Yep, the function seal is to protect this whole inside.
Okay, we have another gasket here.
And that's the gasket that goes on the bottom side of the seal.
Of the seal. Okay, perfect. And this one should be located here.
Right.
All right, and
Well, this actually
oh
goes
yeah,
in.
the collar. All right.
Yeah, this goes in first. And there's a special tool that holds that down. We'll just leave that for now.
To tie that one.
And
All
tie
right.
that, and then that goes down.
Normally, in order to avoid damage the seal, you put grease over there, grease on the shaft, and you introduce carefully.
And you have to
Moving.
inspect the shaft, because sometimes where that seal is, it'll actually cut a groove into the shaft.
Correct.
And it won't seal properly. And sometimes you have to replace the shaft.
Replace the shaft. Okay. All right.
Which I'll show you in a picture in what's up on the screen.
on the screen. Okay. Perfect.
So the next plate, you put the wear plate, just like you've seen in the video in the
On the
outboard.
video, okay.
And then you have the impeller that goes on there with the keyway. Same thing. You always want to
Once
put the
again,
keyway.
the key in front.
And this one's different because it has a center, but then you put the keyway because it rotates standard rotation, so it's going to roll like this inside of this housing, and then it forces the water up through here to go up to the upper housing that you saw.
Correct. Okay.
Okay,
Perfect.
so on the Bravos, the water pumps in the boat. There's no water
Yeah.
pump in the drive.
Yeah. Okay.
Only Alphas, the OMC drives, they're the only ones that would have it.
In the Bravos, the raw water pump is
In the
inside
motor.
on the
On the
motor.
motor.
Okay. In Alphas, the raw water pump is here in the
Correct.
lower unit.
All the time.
Quiz question.
Absolutely, that's an awesome quiz, guys.
Okay. Good. All right. That's the process. It's
Yep.
The rest is equal. You rotate the shaft. You a lot of grease and order the parts according with the part number, according with the serial number.
Yep. It's so important to know to have the part number and the serial number and know what you're working on.
Correct. And other important recommendation, Danny, only to refresh for our students about the nuts. Clean the thread.
Clean the threads, apply a little bit of grease.
Correct. And if you try, when you try to introduce the nut, if it's hard, you have problems.
Absolutely, you don't cross thread it.
Correct.
So I want to make a special note on the grease. You'd be amazed how many technicians don't put grease on their bolts. You have to remember, if you don't put grease in the bolts and it's a bolt that doesn't move, water gets in there.
Yeah.
Like a crevice corrosion.
Yeah, of
That
course.
actually it'll build salt, and what happens, it binds, and then when you go to take it out, you're going to snap the bolt.
Yeah.
So if it's your customer, you know you're going to work on it again, so you apply grease to everything you have.
Yeah, that's a recommendation.
Depending on the situation, if it's a bolt that takes Loctite, then obviously you don't put grease. But it's something that you're
of
going to do a
course.
servicing,
Of course, yeah.
you should always put grease on it.
And or use the lubricant recommended by the manufacturer.
Correct.
Each manufacturer have a
Has their own
special
lubrication,
recommendation.
correct.
Okay.
Now we are going to analyze the flow of the raw water, in an inboard engine steam drive with raw water system. No coolant, no heat exchanger, it's raw water system. The raw water circulate from the lower unit outside, enter to the lower unit, enter in the engine compartment, circulate to the block and the head, and return outside through the exhaust pipe or through the propeller if it's depending of the system. Okay, right now we are going to check the flow. We have the lower unit located here, and this is the lower unit, and of course if we have the lower unit completely over there, and we are going to check the path of the raw water. The raw water enter to the grill, pass to the lower unit and enter. Normally, depending of the system, the raw water pump could be located here, the raw water pump with the impeller, or in some cases the raw water pump is located inside of the boat. Yeah, raw water pump inside like this, or raw water pump in the lower unit of the steam drive. In between the middle section and the lower unit, you have the raw water pump. There are two different types. Both of them are commonly used. Both of them are equally efficient. Okay, suppose that the raw water pump is here. Okay, the raw water pump suction the salt water enter in the engine compartment, and in this case we have the raw water pump here, and now the pressure of the raw water pump increase the raw water pump continue into the thermostat housing. In the thermostat housing, the thermostat housing is divided in two sections. In the first section, the raw water continue, no problem in the thermostat housing. The raw water pump, the raw water continue and enter in this pump. Normally this pump is the coolant pump or freshwater pump or circulating pump. In this particular model, because this model is raw water, that pump is working with salt water. The circulating pump is working with salt water. Okay, what is the meaning of that? The circulating pump suction the raw water and enter the raw water in the block, and the raw water in the block circulate in between the block and the head, and return over there. The raw water pump, the salt water return and enter in the thermostat housing. Okay, depending if the thermostat housing is open, some raw water enter over there and goes directly into the riser, and the exhaust manifold circulate here, enter into the riser of the manifold and goes out with the smoke. If the thermostat is closed, the raw water continue and return into the coolant pump or circulating pump. The circulating pump circulate the raw water and send the raw water into the block, and the raw water circulate to the block and the head. The block and the head return again over there. If the thermostat is closed, the raw water continue and return into the block in two directions, this direction and this direction, circulate to the block and the head and return again. If the thermostat is open, goes into the manifolds, in the manifold goes out, like this, and the salt water is mixed with the smoke and goes out. This is the circulation of the salt water in an inboard engine, in this particular case a steam drive, with circulation of pure salt water. What happens if the engine is not a steam drive? If the engine is not a steam drive, it's basically the same. The only difference is that we have here the bell housing, we have the transmission, and we have the coupling, and we have the propeller and the shaft. Alright, in this particular case, in this transmission, you have a cooler. You have a special cooler, like the cooler that you have on the screen right now, and the salt water, when the salt water goes here, the salt water penetrates over there in the cooler, pass through the cooler, and after that continue over there and goes into the risers and bye-bye. In other words, we have an extra heat exchanger for the transmission, and the oil of the transmission enter in the heat exchanger, and the salt water pass in the middle of the heat exchanger to refrigerate the transmission. But the cycle is the same. Doesn't matter if you have the transmission outside, a steam drive, or if you have the transmission inside. It's the typical straight configuration or V-drive configuration. Both of them, the transmission is inside. In both cases, in the straight transmission or in the V-drive transmission, those transmissions have a cooler, oil cooler for the transmission, and that cooler cool the transmission oil with salt water. The salt water is the same salt water that is moved by the raw water pump, and in this particular example, the circulating pump. Okay, don't forget, if I have an engine inboard with raw water refrigeration, both pumps, the raw water pump and the circulating pump, are moving salt water. Yeah? Yes, the circulating pump or coolant pump in this particular example is moving also salt water, both of them. And the raw water pump could be internal raw water pump or external if the configuration of the engine is a steam drive. In that case, the raw water pump is in between the lower unit and the middle section. Or the raw water pump is internal, like this one, and the raw water pump is driven by the crankshaft and the pulley on the crankshaft by a belt. And right now we are going to analyze this system, the raw water system, with Professor Rodriguez in the laboratory, and we are going to analyze the consequence of the raw water system when the raw water system is improperly used. What is the meaning of that? I recommend raw water system if the boat is used every day. But if the boat is used periodically, once per month, each 2 weeks, this system is not good, because the salt water in an iron block and a head block in irons is propense to excessive corrosion, and this is the consequence. It's a block of the engine motor mounts fully corroded because the salt water accelerate the corrosion process. Yes, we are going to analyze with Professor Rodriguez the raw water system in an inboard engine, and the consequence when the raw water system is improperly, when the motor and the transmission are improperly bonded, and when the service on those engines is not appropriate. What is the meaning of that? And remember, if you have a raw water system, you need to flush the system each time that you finish the service on the boat, or each time that you use the boat, you need to flush the system. You need to flush with fresh water in order to avoid salt water, stagnant salt water inside of the block for weeks, for months, for years. This is the enemy of those engines, and you need to verify constantly the bonding system on those type of engines, and you need to verify the installation of the sinks in order to protect those blocks and those transmissions. Can I install extra sinks on those systems? Yes, you can. Remember, the sink should be installed where the salt water is passing, is moving. In other words, at the end of the heat exchangers, or in some part of the risers, in areas where the salt water is passing. Yeah, because the idea is that the salt water, during the path of the salt water, if the salt water found pieces of zinc, the salt water, the oxygen on the salt water attack the zinc and not attack the iron. This is the idea. Other recommendation is, if you want to abandon the engine for a long period of time, flush the salt water and let the engine with a coolant or antifreeze in order to avoid corrosion. Remember that the coolant and the antifreeze have a lubricity, have additives that reduce the corrosion and reduce the scaling.
This is another episode related with raw water system, raw water circulation. We mentioned before that we have raw water in outboard and we have raw water in inboard. But Danny, raw water in inboard is catastrophic, no?
Yeah, absolutely.
Look at the corrosion.
Yeah, look at the corrosion.
What happened?
There's no protection. There's no protection for the engine. Everything's getting all the passages are getting raw water, so it's susceptible to
that's
corrosion.
Ridiculous. Additionally, we have a block in iron, heads in iron in contact with salt water.
Is the result what you
That's
get.
the result. Why they continue producing those systems?
Because it's cheaper.
It's cheaper, no?
It's cheaper. It's probably around $1,500 to $2,000 upgrade if you wanted to go with a cooling
Yeah,
system.
this is an important question. We can convert, no?
Oh, absolutely, you
Yeah,
can convert.
we need added the heat exchanger basically,
Right.
no? And change the risers, no?
You have to change the risers you can reuse, you have to use a block off plate.
Correct. All right. One important thing when we have this system is in relation with the pumps. What happened with the pumps?
Correct. In this particular model, this is for an IO, stern drive system.
Oh, a steam drive. All
So
right.
you'll look at the picture above, you'll see the stern,
Correct.
you'll see the picture
That's
of the
the
stern
pump of the raw water in the lower unit.
Correct.
Correct.
So then when you come here,
Correct. The raw water enter over there.
correct, through the cooler, which is for your power steering.
Correct.
That's your power steering cooler.
Correct. Okay, the raw water enter over there and continue
It comes
into the
thermostat
housing. And now here in the thermostat housing, if the thermostat is open, the water enter and
Right.
circulate in the block.
Correct. And
If
then-
not, return into the
Into the
risers and
it's
bye-bye.
expelled out. Correct.
Okay, and all the water enter in the engine?
No.
No, some amount. What happened with the rest of the water?
The rest of the water gets expelled out to the exhaust. Now you have a circulating water pump that actually circulates that water through the engine, just
Through
like the
the
coolant.
engine. Exactly.
But it's only
It
for
is
the
for
raw
salt
water,
water.
for salt water.
That's important. In this moment, the raw water, the coolant pump is working with salt water.
Correct.
But that pump was designed to work with coolant.
Yes. And this is designed to work for salt water, but it doesn't last as long.
Correct.
You have the same weep hole just in case there's leakage. If you have a bad
Correct.
shaft or a bad seal, and you just got to when you take the belts off, you want to make sure that there's no play on them.
No play, and we need to verify when the engine is off if in the bottom of the coolant pump is leaking.
Correct.
This is an indication that the shaft is broken
Shaft or the
or
seal.
the seals are damaged. No,
Correct.
that's important. And also if we have play on the pulley.
Correct.
But this design is catastrophic.
Right.
No?
And you get an idea what it's going to look like inside the block. If we turn this around again one more time, inside the block, this is where the water gets expelled out.
Yeah.
And look how the corrosion already.
Like
just
the
sort of
mini
kept it.
video that we have on top.
Correct. Like
Correct.
the mini video. So you see the water comes out through here and the exhaust comes out
Correct.
through here. But this, just imagine inside the block, it'll look exactly the same as that, corroded.
Danny, if the engine is not used periodically, this is catastrophic.
Absolutely, because you're allowing everything to corrode, and what happens is it blocks those passages. And if you see the leaks, when you see
Yeah,
a
you
riser
have the leaks.
leaking out here, normally it's leaking. So if you look in here, this is where the exhaust, so you already have water leaking inside
Correct,
there.
correct.
So what happens is whichever valve is open, whichever exhaust valve is open,
Correct.
is the cylinder that'll get water. This is a silent killer for engines.
Danny, this is a great opportunity to show to the student the manifold. This is the adapter,
The extension.
the extension, and this is the riser.
Right. And the extension is used for because it's a little bit below the water line.
Correct. Okay. Depending of the location of the water line with respect to the elbow, that point, we'd use more
The extension.
extensions or
This,
less.
this is a 3-inch, and they also have a 6-inch.
Okay. The maximum is 6,
6
no?
inch,
All right. Okay. This is important
Yeah.
with respect to the level of the water line.
Lower water line, correct.
Okay. That's important. Why those risers have a lot of outlets?
Well, those are these here. You can put elbows. They're used for different applications.
Uh-huh.
Some you have the water outlets coming into the top. Some are coming.
Oh,
to
like the picture that you
like
have on the
picture
screen.
on top.
Oh, okay, perfect. But no, I don't like that system.
Now, well, the life expectancy is really diminished by half compared to a cooling
Correct,
system.
correct. Look how finished the boat fully corroded, no?
Yeah, and that's because if you see, you can actually see how when the water leaks, it runs down.
Yeah,
You can actually see the water lines runs down, and it leaks on top of this. And then what happens is it'll leak, and then it'll get on the belts, and then the
You
alternator.
destroyed
Everybody
everything. Danny, in the ABYC, you remember in the study guide for gasoline, they recommend in this type of engines, if you want to stay the engine abandoned for 6 months, they recommend winterize the system. How is that system?
Well, the winterization system is you'd actually have to get rid of the water in there and run a coolant, an antifreeze through the water system.
And you let the system with coolant.
Right, and you leave it there. That way
For
it doesn't-
6 months.
Correct. What happens is if you don't do that and you let it sit with water, the water will expand because it freezes. It'll crack the manifolds or the block.
Or the block, yeah.
Or the blocks.
Okay, in this type of engine is easy that you found that the liners crack, no? Because
Yes.
the salt water corrode
Yes.
the block.
Raw water system always has more problems than a freshwater cooling system.
Correct. It's cheaper, no?
Yeah, it's cheaper.
It's cheaper in comparison with the other one.
You
And,
pay for what you get for it.
Oh, correct. Okay, in the thermostat housing, we have basically the same, no? We have the thermostat located over there,
Correct.
and in the majority of this outlet, we have the coolant temperature sensor
Yeah.
and the coolant the temperature switch and the temperature sensor.
Correct. So the sensor basically tells you the reading as far as temperature wise. The switch basically tells you to shut down the engine or put it in safe mode if it flips the switch.
Correct. Okay, this one is the sensor.
Yes, that's
This
the
one is the
sensor for
sensor and this is the switch.
Yes.
Look at this, excuse me, sensor and switch.
And that's the switch.
And that's the switch. That's the sensor. The sensor is for the gauge.
Great.
And the switch to interrupt the current in the purple cable on the harness.
Correct.
And cut the power in safety.
Safety mode. Puts in reduction mode.
Correct. We are going to continue with the service on raw water pumps. In this particular example, we are going to talk about inboard raw water pumps. This is the typical housing.
Yes, this is for like a typical housing on a Merc Cruiser Bravo system,
Correct.
like we discussed in the other video.
Uh-huh.
This is actually the replacement kit. So when like I told you, I don't just do the impeller. There's a kit that they sell. So the kit comes with the housing, the wear plate, the O-ring, new hardware, everything that you see there.
And the impeller. What about the impeller, the shaft?
Okay, so here's the deal. Because you're working on an engine, you would have the model and serial number. You would verify the specs as far as on the
Correct.
engine to know what impeller you need, because there's two different types. You have that style and that style. Same impeller, just different shafts.
Different shafts, yeah.
That's why it's absolutely important to know what you're working on, and you need a service
It's
man.
possible for the same model of engine, a different type of...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Or what if someone upgraded the pump on his old motor?
Correct.
That's why it's important to know. Normally what I do as a part of a service is we take it apart. I verify the model serial number with the manufacturer, make sure I'm getting the right part, and I dismantle it before I order anything to make sure that someone didn't update the pump.
Yeah, correct. Okay, be careful with this because externally the diameter is the same.
It's-
And the
it's
number
an
of
identical
blades
pump.
is the same. It's identical.
Identical. The only thing is the key, the shaft is different.
Oh, the shaft is different. Perfect. All right. And the procedure to do the replacement is the same.
It's similar to what we did on the outboards. The only difference is I would take the pump out of the motor,
Correct.
put it on a bench, and basically then I would dismantle it and put everything together.
This is the pump that the shaft have a pulley, and the pulley is connected with the bell of the alternator and
Correct.
crankshaft, and that's.
I know we don't get like right hand rotation, left hand, it's usually standard rotation now. So back in the day, now if you look, it has the different rotations, and depending on what model you're using, so you
Correct.
have to pay attention and make sure when you're taking a hose off that if this is the inlet side and this is the outlet side, or vice versa, make sure you pay attention to that.
Danny, please, we are going to repeat. If we have the older system with the rotation left side or right side, we need to pay attention to this.
Absolutely, because
Okay.
the pulley's turning, instead of turning to the right, it can be turning to the left or vice versa. You need to know which side.
And the ports change.
Absolutely, just
Oh.
because of the rotation of the motor.
Yeah, I remember I damaged a couple of impellers for that.
I think all old mechanics have done that
Yeah.
at one point in time.
Okay, we need to be careful with the sense of rotation depending of the rotation of the engine. What is the rule? This one is the same like the
Standard rotation.
Okay.
Yeah, so a normal standard rotation is if you were like looking at the back of the motor, it turns right hand, but if you're looking in the front of the motor, it turns left hand.
Correct.
That's a standard rotation. That's what's today. They really don't make that. I don't even think that you would even run into a counter rotation motor anymore.
No.
I haven't seen one in years.
Because right now it's on the transmission.
The transmission,
No? Okay, and we are going to explain later
Yeah,
that
on the
situation. In
transmission
the class
class.
of transmission, we have a special recommendation about the sense of rotation of the propellers in gas and diesel. No?
Right, absolutely.
All right, guys.